From what we have just learned, public policy is concerned with the decisions and actions that the government takes to deal with issues and problems that affect the entire community. There are many different influences on this policy making. You will need to follow along with this presentation to fill out the notes that are left on your public policy foldable. The first group that we're going to focus on is the mass media and the significant role that they play in shaping public policy. If you think back to previous units, the mass media was a way to reach large groups of people, to spread information to large groups of people. So some examples that we had come up with would be newspapers, magazines, television, radio, and now especially the internet is a way to reach large groups of people. The first way that the mass media helps to shape public policy is they focus public attention on selected issues. Based on what that media outlet finds to be important, that's where. So for example, a newspaper can choose where they want to focus our attention by selecting a cover story that they feel is the most important to them. Or a television newscast will display the headlines of news stories that they want us to focus on in the commercial breaks before that television show actually airs. The next way that the media helps to shape public policy is they offer a forum or a place where opposing viewpoints are communicated. So sometimes on a newscast, they'll bring in two different points of views and let those people share their views, sometimes debate about an issue, or just educate the public on both sides of the story. So they offer a forum where opposing viewpoints can be communicated. The third way that the mass media helps to shape public policy is that they hold government officials accountable to the public. If you think back to our political process unit, you'll remember the role of the watchdog and how the party that is not in power keeps watch over the party in power. The media takes on this responsibility as well. News reporters are constantly keeping watch over government officials to make sure that they are following their responsibilities and that they do not abuse their power while in office. So let's say a senator, a representative, maybe even the president makes a mistake in office, possibly abuses their power. It will be printed in the newspapers or televised on TV for the public to know. So they hold government officials accountable to the public. One form of mass media that we are all very familiar with is social media. It's a growing industry that includes things like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest. So one example of social media influencing public policy is during the past campaign, all of the presidential candidates had Facebook pages so that the public had access to information on the candidates. You could read about the party platform, you could see the events of their campaign trail, and learn about the same thing goes for major interest groups and issues that are of concern of the public. So if you have a particular issue that you're interested in, say it's the environment or higher education, I'm sure you can Google it and find a Facebook page, a Twitter feed, lots of information available through the mass media and the internet. If we take a look at today's NBC Politics page on NBCnews.com, you can see that they have chosen specific information that they find important to them. So they're focusing public attention on specific issues. It looks like right now the attention is on the rearrangement of the presidential cabinet and filling the seats of the cabinet. It talks about Clinton leaving Secretary of State. She's confident about the direction she's set forth in her past term. Also talking about filling Kerry's Senate seat, who's going to take over when John Kerry moves into the presidential cabinet. And it also talks about a little bit of controversy as Kerry takes the helm as Secretary of State. So they're holding public officials accountable, and they're following the actions going on in government. So this is the way that the media gets to focus on what they find to be important, and that's what the public is going to hear about. Another major influence on policy making is the job of lobbyists. They actually do this thing called lobbying, which is to seek to influence legislatures to introduce or vote for or against a bill. So a lobbyist is committed to a specific issue that they feel passionate and educated about, that they will actually seek to contact lawmakers to persuade them to vote either for or against a proposed law. We are going to watch a video. It's actually a commercial from a Washington, D.C. lobbying firm that employs people full-time to lobby for special interest groups. This is actually a commercial, but it does a really good job of explaining the role of a lobbyist, which they refer to as an expert. So let's take a look at the job of a lobbyist. So Billy was able to lobby by himself to encourage his parents to allow him a dog. But as an adult, William had a much more complicated problem, so he hired an expert, and he would have hired a lobbyist to take care of voting for legislation, influencing legislation that was important to him and his company. The next thing that we're going to focus on is how individual people and individual citizens can influence public policy. So myself as a teacher and yourself as students, we would fall under this category. How can we influence lawmaking and public policy? The first way individuals influence public policy is by participating in politics, by getting out and voting or helping during a political campaign. So staying involved and participating involves us and individuals in public policy. The first example seems a bit self-explanatory, a little obvious, that by participating we are helping to influence lawmaking. The second way that individuals influence public policy is by expressing our opinions. So if we feel especially passionate about a particular issue, we should express our opinions and make sure that our voice is heard. By doing this, we would be exercising our First Amendment rights. So we have the right to freedom of speech, so lobbying government officials, lobbying lawmakers to influence policy making. By demonstrating, that's like freedom of assembly, getting together in a large group for a peaceful cause, participating in a march or a protest, that would be demonstrating. And then writing letters to people who can make a change or make a difference. That would be our First Amendment right of petition. So by expressing our opinions as individual citizens, we can influence public policy. The third way that individuals influence public policy is by joining interest groups and by getting together with groups of people who share the same interests, the same opinions and values that we do about a particular issue. So remember, there's power in numbers, so by joining a group of other people who feel the similar way, individuals can influence public policy. As I had mentioned before, students would fall under this category of individuals influencing public policy. So I have a pretty neat video of William and Mary college students who reached out to the Virginia General Assembly, which is the Virginia legislative branch, and they had reached out to lobby lawmakers about an issue that they felt was very important to them. So let's take a look at how students can influence public policy.
Road to Richmond is an opportunity for students to come down to Richmond and meet with different legislatures and talk about basically just the reasons why they should support higher education.
One of the bills that's right now in the House, the Virginia House, talks about the out-of-state students. We're going to try to express that William and Mary likes their out-of-state students and are hoping to keep them in the diversity that they bring.
It's a gift for the representatives who will be seeing. We're also bringing M&Ms. So if you want to have your vote heard, flowers and M&Ms seems to be the way to do it.
About to unleash the students on the General Assembly. Many messages to deliver, but mainly the students need to go and just be their normal, wonderful selves.
Think you can do it?
Yes, we can do it.
The governor in the next 15 years wants to award 100,000 new degrees to Virginians. And in order to do that, he is putting pressure on the colleges and universities to accept more in-state students. 2011, all 140 members of the General Assembly, all 100 members of the House of Delegates, all 40 members of the Senate of Virginia are up for re-election. So you might just remind them casually, gosh, this is really nice being with you. I'm a young voter. My mom and dad vote too. And so do my brother and my sister and my aunt, and my uncle, and my grandmother, and my grandfather.
Higher ed from the standpoint of investment and jobs creation and attracting and keeping highly skilled people in the Commonwealth. You don't do that. One, people won't come if they're in grade schools, and two, there's no incentive to come and stay.
We very much, value out-of-state students because the diversity bring and also the money that they bring. That's a very important part.
We just also want to take this opportunity to really advocate for keeping the number of our out-of-state students, the ratio and percentage just as good as it is.
The House sends over those bills, we kill them every time. I'm chairman of the Higher Education Subcommittee, and that's a perennial bill.
Oh, my green and gold M&Ms next year. That was really
that
cool.
sugar rush to get you there.
That's what I need. Breakfast of champions. I've not had breakfast.
We had some interesting conversations, though, especially with Delegate Hugo about his bill to try and raise the mandate.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. Yeah. Gave out all our M&Ms.
Everyone enjoyed that.
See you next year.
It was beautiful. Will, our chairman. If you cross Will, it's like Dixon. Like we close
be very cheerful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's a pretty interesting example of how everyday citizens can influence the laws and policies set forth by the legislative branch. To complete the rest of your public policy foldable, you will need to continue to the next video labeled Public Policy Notes Number 2.